Hello and welcome to another bonus episode of the Smashing Pumpkast. I'm Frank Garcia Hale.
I'm Pat O'Brien, and today we have a special sort of Zoom roundtable with a bunch of friends who were kind enough to join us who went to the recent WPC Early Years shows at ZuZu's. Frank and I did not go to the show, so they're going to kind of give us a first-hand account, let us know what it was like. And we're really excited. So with us today we have Mandy Dayton. Mandy, welcome.
Hi.
We have Melissa Moore. Melissa, thank you so much for being here.
Welcome.
And John, is it LaMantia?
LaMantia?
John LaMantia or LaMantia?
LaMantia.
LaMantia. I was wrong.
We both got it wrong.
Two swings, and
Everybody always messes up my last name, so I feel it.
Yeah. I Americanize too much, I think. But
well, thank you all so much for being here. We might actually have one more guest pop in. We'll see. This is, we'll see how it goes. But so we're gonna kind of hand the reins over to you for the most part. But the thing we're talking about is the recent shows. I know some of you went to multiple shows. But Frank, do you want to give us just the basic info on these shows?
Yeah. So William Patrick Corgan decided at Madame ZuZu's to do 2 weekends of shows where he was doing his early years material, 1985 through 1990. So kind of pre-Pumpkins or during Pumpkins when they first started. And this happened on October 2nd and 3rd and October 9th and 10th. And we have thanks to Pam, our good friend Pam, we get to look at this lovely what would you call it? A program that you can actually purchase at ZuZu's right now. But a lot of great songs, some that we were familiar with and some that were new to some of us. And these were special events that they sold tickets for, very limited number. And our guests with us today were the lucky ones who got to see this show. Pat, is there anything I'm missing?
I don't think so. Yeah, we'll just kind of have everybody go around. You could say, who you are, where you're from, what your sort of Pumpkin love is, the history of your love of the band is, and then just tell us about your experience with the shows. Melissa, do you want to kick things off?
Sure.
From Chicago, from chilly Chicago.
Yeah, I live on the north side of Chicago. I've been a Pumpkins fan since the 90s. I actually went to the same high school and grew up 1 mile from Billy, but we were definitely not in the same year of class. But Pumpkins, when I was growing up, or in the 90s, was probably one of my top favorite bands. And it was a really big thing in our high school because it was like, oh, Billy went here,
Mm-hmm.
And so I remember specifically just people like sporting the shirts, and like there was one girl in particular that kind of used to dress up like one of his album covers, and we're like, oh, she's really into the Pumpkins. But it was interesting because for me, it's always hit closer to my heart with Billy, and like being able to identify with him so much because I know the areas kind of, like when he's talking about the neighborhood, I know what neighborhood he's talking about, and just kind of like like the culture and demographic of kind of where our high school was and where he grew up. But definitely my top 2 favorite bands. I think the world of him. I think the world of his music. His songwriting is, to me, in my opinion, completely out of control. Like, he's so talented. And so I actually had never been to the original Madame ZuZu's, and now that they've kind of reinvented it, I'm there all the time. And like I told you, I take advantage of kind of everything. Staff is great. Like, it's just been such a blessing to have that so close by. Everything Chloe does is amazing. But or the point is that it's definitely a band that's touched me near and dear to my heart. Instead of having like respect and love for them, it's just more like pulling at my heartstrings a lot. So yeah, I'm 43 years old. So I know the first album I bought was Gish. I remember coming home and listening to it. I remember, going to concerts. I actually got second row concerts and like tickets to Shining Oh So Bright tour, and it was just like it's just amazing. Like I just love being a part of their world. So that's kind of, I don't know if I'm missing anything because it's hard to like.
No, that's great. Yeah,
there's
a lot to it, but
there is.
When you're a huge fan, it kind of, and have been for a long time, it kind of touches all parts of your life. But well, tell us a little bit about the shows you went to. What you went to more than one, right?
I went to 5.
It's more than one.
Yeah, and so I went to the very first one, and I like had a front middle seat and a front table, and I'm like, oh my god, I don't deserve to be this close, but it's amazing because Riot Fest just happened, and that was a whole nother like crazy off the hook production. So I like Billy the best when he's kind of just like 6 feet away from you and just doing his thing. But I did go to multiple shows. I really had a lot of, I don't even know if empathy is the right word. I give him a lot of credit because telling the story he told so many times is a lot. And he didn't veer off at all, like based on like it was the second show or like the next weekend, or he put his whole heart into it. So I was very lucky to be there. I did like sitting in different areas because I also like watching the audience's reaction to like stories he's telling. And so I went to a bunch, and I think the one I went to with Mandy and I did like a 2-day, the last Sunday he played, we did like the 3 and the 8 p.m. And it was just like the best day ever because not only did I get to hang out with her, but we got to listen to it twice. And, you get little tidbits of like more info or stories told just a little bit differently. And so after hearing the show several times, you really get a lot of information about his story and what he went through, and, interesting facts about the band you never get to hear.
Yeah. Well, Mandy, you and Melissa are pals. You know each other. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your history with the band, and what the shows were like for you.
So I remember being really little when Siamese Dream came out, and I remember this guy in a ice cream truck driving, and I thought he was so cute, but I was still really little at this time. I was born in 1984. So I was excited when that would come on TV. It was kind of mixed in with everything else, though. There was like Tool, there was Janet Jackson, like MTV was just kind of a mess. So you had to really wait for that to come on. But then when Melancholy came out, I had just moved to a new town. I had no friends. I was abused by my dad. I was bullied at school, and then I just kind of lived in my room with the door locked all the time, and just for safety. One day I was watching MTV and I saw the Tonight Tonight video come on, and it was unlike anything I'd ever seen. It was beautiful. Like the music was unlike anything I'd ever heard, and I just fell in love, and I just lived on my bunk bed waiting for this music video to come on, and their music videos to come on every day. And it took a long time for me to get the Melancholy CDs because they were so expensive at that time. I think back in like 90s money around here, it was about a $70 album or something. It was outrageous. So an uncle lent it to my dad, who lent it to me, and then when I finally got to hear the album in its entirety, I just remember like seriously hugging my radio, as dumb as that sounds, and just bawling, because it's like he got to articulate what I couldn't. and it just felt like it was meant for me or something, or I don't know. I just like wanted to completely just embrace it and have that just be all mine. And his pain and everything, like now I have such a better appreciation for what he went through, like writing these songs. And it's like Melissa said, it was a lot. Like at the shows, I know how hard it is retelling abusive stories. It takes a long time to get that out. It's embarrassing. It's really hard to talk about when you have friends that grew up in this like Brady Bunch kind of house to talk about stuff. You will worry that people won't believe you or get the gravity of it. It was like you had to be there for it to like really sink in. But anyway, I'm like veering off. But yeah, like I've been obsessed ever since I was 10, 11 years old. It's never stopped. And Billy's, just like many other people, stopped me from killing myself, like truthfully. Like even if there was just times where it was like I can't do it because I'm gonna miss the next album that comes out.
Yeah.
Like that was sometimes the only thing that there was to look forward to. So ever since then, I've wanted to tell him like thank you for my life. Basically, I named my daughter after, I named her Starla because she saved my life. He saved my life. And I finally got to meet, like, I got to introduce my kids to him this time.
Wow.
And like, that was a dream. I got to introduce them to my hero. I got to tell Billy, thank you for saving my life. It's like I got to tell him these things I've been holding in forever.
Mm-hmm.
But I almost, like, after the third show, the gravity did like start weighing on me. As soon as Melissa dropped me off at my hotel, it was like something hit me where I just started crying, like, and I couldn't go to my room. I just sat where the little ice machine was forever, and I was just bawling, and I didn't know what to do. I think like the gravity, gravity is my word today, but like I think just the weight of telling him the things I've wanted to say for so long, and just the story, like the abuse and everything that he went through is like way more than I think anybody thought. I think some people think his childhood was bad. Then he had like, the Marked, and then the Smashing Pumpkins started forming. But there was like so much more in between his childhood and that was like hardcore, just horrible abuse. And like I have a 17-year-old, soon to be 18-year-old, and like I cannot fathom treating my kids like the way he was treated. It was so much. And so it's like thanking him for like my life. I almost feel like he had to go through all of this with his life to give that to us. Like, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that that's a compliment to him. I don't know. I just thank God for him all the time. I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't even be married to my husband. That's what we had in common. I wouldn't have my kids if it wasn't for him. And like hearing all these stories has just made me appreciate him so much more and just what he's been through.
Yeah.
So I feel like there's a lot more I could say, but like that's my story.
Yeah, thank you so much
thank you so much for sharing all that.
Yeah, and you got to, you said you got to kind of express this to him, which is pretty. I mean, that has to feel like sort of a strange full circle, moment, to have him share these things and for you to be able to say directly to this person that you connected with from afar, as a kid, through his music, how much it meant to you. That's pretty amazing.
I know, it's surreal because I'm like, I wouldn't be here, and then my daughter Starla wouldn't be here, and now I'm getting to introduce my daughter Starla to my hero. So yeah, it did kind of come full circle, and I'm just like rewinding it in my head and like hoping I said everything I wanted to say.
Oh, yeah.
But he was like very welcoming. Everything I wanted to say, I'm like, is it okay if I talk to you? And he's like, yeah. He's like really warm and welcoming there, as opposed to getting like mobbed by fans outside of a concert. There, he's just very comfortable, and you feel comfortable talking to him.
Yeah. That's great. Well, we'll keep this conversation going. Obviously, John, tell us about you. Tell us about where you're from and what your history with the band or bands, as we see on the wall, is.
Well, all that's Pumpkins except for this one.
Right.
I do have some other, I have a couple other bands there, but it's mostly 95% is them. So yeah, I'm from Chicago. I live here now. I have been a fan since I'm a little bit older than you guys. So I've been a fan. I was not in junior high in 1995. So I think I was 21 in 1995 when Melancholy came out. But so I've been a fan since the early 90s. So I feel like I've been along with them. I was one of those people, like many of us, who bought Siamese Dream first because of all the hits, right? And then you're like, wait a minute, there's another one before this. And then you go to Gish and you're like, holy crap, totally different, but ridiculous. Being a huge fan for this many years, I could do a whole show myself for 4 hours and just nonstop, which if you know me at all, people will tell you that I do that. So they try to shut me up a lot. But yeah, it's just a huge, long history. I feel extremely lucky to be one of the only things I like living in Chicago or the Midwest or whatever, is that I've had so many awesome connections to this band that I have followed as a religion for 27, 28 years, just because of the proximity. I've been to the first ZuZu's many times, the current one, the first ZuZu's several shows there or events there where he was there. Several times it was with him singing, and one comes to mind with when he was there with Jeff, sang a bunch of songs intimately. If you know, the first ZuZu was maybe half the size of the current ZuZu's. So talk about intimate, you couldn't get much smaller than that, than maybe saying, come to my living room and play a show, which was, if you could have told the 90s me, which I hear you guys say a lot on the podcast, if you could have told the younger me that I would be sitting in this little room that looks like an antique shop with my rock god playing the guitar. I mean, I heard Stumbling like 30 feet away from it,
Yeah.
So it's there's no words for someone like me who, when like I often say it's my religion, right? I don't have a real religion, but it's as close as I can get as these album lyrics. And everything Melissa and Mandy said triggered something in me that made me want to say something, expound upon that, but we would be here all day, so I really can't. But being able to be here close to them, having so many, when you live in Chicago, I always joke about this. Everybody that you talk to knows him or knows something about him or did carpenter work for his house or worked on his car. And you're just like, you can't believe half the stories you hear, right? But so that's one of the things I like best about this show, which I think I mentioned to Frank on tweet or whatever. I liked hearing these stories directly from Billy's mouth because it was the actual story. We live here and everyone says they know him or his mother's uncle's brother's cousin, and they have a story and you're like, it really doesn't sound like him, even though, I mean, you think you know him because you've been a big fan for this long. You don't know him really, so you don't know what to really believe. And you hear some of the stories about how this came about or how that came about, but sitting there with him saying these early stories, it's the truth. It's from the guy's mouth. And, even for him, for years and years and years, he was not press friendly, and he wasn't. How many interviews have you seen where they say, well, where did you come up with the name Smashing Pumpkins? And he would never answer the question. It was always some joke answer or a FU answer. And as a fan sitting here in my living room in the 90s and 2000s, I'm like, oh God, just tell me. I really want to know. But it's one of those questions that's too stupid to ask him in person. So now you know the whole story. It's just one of those things where it's the truth. You don't have to listen to some third, fourth, fifth hand baloney. And now I can tell people that what he said, of course, now I'm secondhand, right? But yeah, it's just, I mean, I've been to, not to his houses, but I've driven past the Wrigleyville house, the purple Victorian, where, I just drove by once. Not a stalker, but you look at it and you're like, God, some of my most amazing lyrics ever heard in my life were created in that house, so there's just a lot around the Chicagoland area. Like they said, a lot of the stories he's told and stuff like that, you're like, oh, that's the place, I go there, so it's super interesting. So
well, this feels Yeah, and we'll talk about the set list next, and the actual songs he chose. But yeah, it seems like Billy in general in recent years, especially with social media and everything, but also like deliberate things like these shows, he seems to be taking opportunities to sort of set the record straight to people who are interested in hearing it, as opposed to like in the 90s, say, there were a lot of sort of misquotes slash, like you said, John, like people kind of taking something he said in a tongue-in-cheek kind of way and running with it as the truth, or whatever. Just a lot of sort of confusion and speculation and stuff. So
Well, I
yeah,
think
it's
now with
yeah,
having this platform that he has now, I mean, as much as he has a love-hate with Instagram, he could
right.
do the lives, and it's just him to us. There's no middleman, Plus, I feel like what is he, 53, 4 years old now? He's not a bitter 20s, 30s something. He's still a slightly bitter something, 50 something old. But I feel like he does feel now, and if I could put myself in his shoes a little bit, I feel like he probably has a little bit of an elder statesman feeling now in the music industry. He's not a new little kid. He's got that history now. He's got the awards. And I don't mean the award, but he's got that backing him up now. Plus, with his age, his experience, his maturity, maybe therapy, and the platforms, he can kind of be a little bit more open and honest now, maybe.
Yeah.
Something that he said that I think is really interesting, and I wish everyone could hear, is that he's like, people have a hard time separating the artist from like their art, but I've heard so many times, people say that I don't like Billy Corgan, but I like his music. And he's like, for me, I am the same thing. Like, if you like my music, that is me. There's no separation there. And I'm really glad that he said that, because I've heard that so many times too. Like, he's an asshole, but I love his music. But like, that is him. Like,
right.
that's encompassed. I don't know. Like, it's all encompassing. The person you see, like, that you don't like, the music that you love, it's all the same.
Most experience, I think, with him depends on the day you've met him.
Yeah.
Or what you, because I've met him dozens of times now and sat and talked with him. I've been very lucky. I have a friend too who lived, Melissa, near him growing up, and they kind of know each other and they talk about the old neighborhood. Sitting there sometimes in that respect. I met him at a garage sale here in Uptown in Chicago. I mean, it was a vintage garage sale. It wasn't just one house, and he was the nicest, friendliest person. It was more of a homey feel. It wasn't a show, or it wasn't a business. You know what I mean? So it depends on how you meet him and maybe your approach too. But I have one of my best friends has just a very negative opinion. Then we met him together once, and he was very nice. And I said, "See, maybe it's you." So maybe it is how you come across to people,
Yeah, I think that's a really great point, is like how people approach. We know this from our industry too, of like having friends who are like, in TV and movies and stuff, and you see how people approach them, and you're like, what are you doing? There's a way that people approach, and there's a way that you can tell the genuine people from the people who are just like, hey, rat in a cage, and you're like, what? Get away, like you don't know. But like, to Mandy, your point, I think it's like, if people really paid attention to the music, really paid attention to the music like we do, like we just like live it and breathe it, that there is no separation, that's all, Billy, it's all there. So I think that's a really good point. So with these shows, what were some highlights for you? Anybody can.
So many.
The honesty, I think, and the genuineness, like they've said, to hear him say, he was brutally honest. I mean, like Mandy said, he had a crappy childhood, right? But when you hear it from the person's mouth, it just brings a certain humanity to it. When he's saying these things, you're just like, Jesus, how are you still here? And thank God.
Yeah.
But these lyrics that we all love and worship, right, came from, like, they're deep for a reason. You know what I mean?
And deep trauma.
When you mix that with, like, he's actually a genius, right? Or maybe is a genius. You mix those two things together, and you get these amazing genius lyrics that we don't feel like we could do, because, like Mandy said, he did it for us. And quite good at.
I think like the most enlightening point of this, was like, and I felt so stupid, but I was like, I loved hearing the story about the Smashing Pumpkins. I've never actually really thought super deeply into that, especially like when MTV used to like actually play music videos and like back before all the reality shows. I remember like when the grunge era came about, and there were just like so many bands being listed, kind of when Nirvana started, but they were kind of going crazy with highlighting newer bands and stuff. But I was always like, oh, that's a cool name, right? And knowing they were from my hometown, and then hearing him tell the story, it was like somebody like hit me. I was like, the Smashing Pumpkins. That makes sense. I didn't. Light bulb never went off, and I loved hearing it from him. And it was like probably my favorite part of the whole night. It was like him telling the story about.
Can you give the nutshell version of that story that he told about the origin of the band?
Yeah, it was. It had to do with like the Marked was not an easy name to communicate when you're at a loud club saying the Marked.
Right.
And so talking about maybe you guys can help me.
Well, as far as the Smashing Pumpkins name, he had mentioned the fact that he was sitting at a table somewhere with family and friends. Somebody said something about Smashing Pumpkins, and he said, "Oh, that would be a great name for a band."
Yeah.
But Smashing being the the grand,
right?
Yeah, in the British term, of like smashing.
Yeah, so
right.
it's not a verb; it's
the adjective, right? Yeah.
Adjective, not a verb. So I've heard him say that before, but not the whole bigger story about how he said, "Oh, that'd be a great name for the band," and they said, "What are you talking about? That's crazy." And he said, "No way." And then he told somebody, "What's the name of your band?" He said, "The Smashing Pumpkins,"
and they remembered it.
6 months later, he saw that guy and said, "Oh,
I saw that person," and they're like, "Smashing Pumpkins."
But see, it is memorable. So he wrote the name on a cassette tape that was blank, and then he said he had this cassette tape with the name of a band on it, but there was no music on it, and there was no band yet. But he had the concept on this cassette. Yeah. Kind of funny.
That's
Melissa,
cool.
was there anything else that kind of stood out to you from that show that you particularly liked? Because you went to, how many shows did you go to?
I went to 5. Gosh, what else did I love? I pay attention to like small things, like watching his fingers on the guitar, kind of getting into like, after hearing the story, a few times, I was able to like, kind of like, instead of focusing so much on the story, really watching his body language and like trying to like seeing the show from his perspective, and I feel like, in all honesty, he genuinely told that story from his gut and his heart out. It wasn't like he was reading off a script. I actually was really impressed that he like could even go in depth. Like, I feel like I'm an empath. If I was to go through a story about trials of a period of my life, I would just need to go be in a room alone for a while. I don't know if I could do it 8 times,
Yeah.
So I feel like that was a really, really wonderful gift he gave, because it like, oh gosh. I mean, I thought that was definitely probably one of the most spectacular things he could have given his fans, is like an opportunity to hear these stories. And he was so transparent. He didn't have to tell us things at all. Like he could have just like gone down like kind of, I don't know what he was using. I'm sure it was all memory and like going back to those times, but you could see him like close his eyes and like just the gestures he made to express something, I just really got involved in like all the little details of like what is kind of like how he was sitting, what his feet were doing, just like the all-encompassing experience of what he was giving to us was just like such a gift to me. Like that's what I'm still riding high off of. It's like, God,
That's
that was
great.
amazing. And then the songs, I
Mandy.
really think that the
sorry.
songs are just so great live. No, I mean, I'm just saying the songs being performed live was, oh my gosh.
Oh yeah.
Amazing.
Well, let's go through the set list, and everybody feel free to jump in and shout out your favorites, any highlights of this. But we're just looking at this this program. The first song was "Now That I Feel This Way" from 1985. And are you looking at the program as
right
well?
there in your hands.
Brought my book.
Oh yeah, so if everybody's got their books, feel free to open your books to page.
Turn to page.
Page 3.
Mine's upstairs. Should we go get them or no?
I know.
We've got it handy, but yeah, I'll just read the track list just so we can refresh
get a
everybody's
sense
memory.
of it,
But then you all jump in and just tell us what your favorites were, or what were really memorable. So first one was "Now That I Feel This Way." That's from 1985. Next, "Pictures of Phillip," also 1985. Next, "First Curse," 1986. Next, great Billyism here, "Mao Say Tongue," number 1, 1986. "Ring of the Shadow," 1986. "The Dream," 1986. "Mao Say Tongue," number 2, 1987. "Pain," 1987. "The Vigil," 1987. "There It Goes," 1988. "Jennifer Ever," 88. "With You," 89. And, of course, "La Dolly Vita" from 1990, which is probably the one people know more commonly. Well, some of these other ones,
Yeah, from 1987 on, you're kind of getting into the territory that we're familiar with.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
Before that, it's like, I don't know any of this, so...
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, what were some standouts? Mandy, we'll start with you. What were some standout tracks or performances from this set list?
Definitely "There It Goes." Like a lot of people, I've always wanted to hear that live. But I guess something that hit me more than like the songs is just how talented, how young he was at this time in like 85. And like Melissa said, you watch his hands and stuff and you're like, you cannot believe that a 17-year-old or whatever, someone like super young, like when he started just playing with his friends like Flying V, that he was like incredible already.
Mm-hmm.
But just being as young as he was, writing the lyrics, writing these songs, and like a lot of it's really kind of tricky, like finger work on the guitar. So I was just blown away by that, being like a guitarist too. Like you could tell he was something special, like way back then. Definitely Jennifer Ever. Me and Melissa would like always wait for that one to come on. We loved that. I'm so sorry if you can hear my email chiming.
That's all right.
But gosh, everyone like cursed. You could like, given like the story and then getting the song, you can be like, oh, now I know where that came from. Like, I think if he releases this as like a vinyl, not having the story is like a big part of it missing, but I understand it because it's so personal. But like having the story and then getting the song that came after that, and because of that experience, is like so much more powerful than just having the song.
Mm-hmm.
So those were mine.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned because one thing that I thought just from afar, not having gone, like the Billy being the perfectionist that he is, or the sort of I don't know, but he like this batch of songs, and even just the way he's talked about like the Pumpkins and sort of the moment when they threw away all their old songs, and he said we need to, like pre-Gish, like we need to make new stuff. Like these particular songs must have met a certain bar of its significance, it sounds like, based on what they meant for his life, but also quality too, like, or else I feel like he wouldn't bother if they were merely old, but not like up to snuff in some way. I don't think he would have bothered revisiting them. You know what I'm saying? Like, they must have stood out to him as like not just significant from what he was going through, but solid songs that could stand on their own.
Yeah, and if I could just add, this is kind of off topic, but just to think that he wrote these things and like you know, his dad just kept telling him like it's luck, or like, you know, trying to make it sound like, just make him feel like it was never going to go anywhere. To know that he wrote those songs, and like not even that many years later he was inducting Pink Floyd into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and playing with David Gilmour, like I Wish You Were Here or whatever. It's just like insane. We know how big of like that time period goes by so fast that it's just, you wish so bad you could go back and just tell Billy, you're going to be playing with David Gilmour.
Yeah. And he's cited that song, and maybe he talked about this in the show, but he's talked about that song being kind of like the first song that he kind of connected with on an emotional level, or like that kind of illuminated like the type of songs he wanted to write himself.
Yeah, he was already incredible so young, so I'm so glad that he got that with David, and it's just been so amazing since. So that was my long story. I'm sorry.
No.
That's what
we're here for. Yeah.
As you know, like we
that's our MO.
eventually we'll end up in a Cure tangent too. So yeah, that's just how the podcast goes. Anybody else?
That he said there were like 150 songs, or there was like 300. I don't know. There was lots of songs, and he picked these out. I loved pictures of Phillip because, you know, at that time he was like writing about anything but himself. And what I wanted to like, I still think like, well, where's Phillip now? Does he know this? You know, his baby pictures, right? Like,
where's the baby?
Whole song written. It's interesting, you know, just like the sentiment, you know, where he would just write about somebody else, or because I think we all kind of avoid sometimes talking about ourselves, you know, and like so everyone can identify with going into like the mystery of some of the unknown, you know.
Especially imagining somebody else's life, or you know, trying to put yourself in their shoes and write from an artistic point of view that way, you know?
Yeah, and this you all are, and I kind of consider myself a Midwesterner. Like, but I'm from Buffalo, which is New York State, but like, you know, it's more like a Chicago than
grandfathered in by the weather.
There's the lake effect snow. Yeah, it feels, and it just you know. But we've talked about this idea of the Pumpkins and Billy's Midwest mysticism, and I feel like maybe that kind of like certain amount of like I feel like maybe that feeds into it, you know, the kind of like, it's not polite to sort of talk about yourself too much, yet I feel very deeply and I have a lot to say, you know, so maybe that I don't know, maybe that plays into that somehow. But do you all think like what is it, you know, I don't know. It obviously, like we've talked a lot about Chicago and stuff, and Billy sort of being this kind of hometown figure who is still, you know, a figure in his hometown. What do you think it is about the band and where they're from that, like, do you think that has to do with what a lot of people connect to the band over, you know what I mean? Like, is there something about where they're from that informs the music and the connection with people?
Well,
I think for me,
sorry, Melissa.
No, I'm sorry. It's like, I think there's a delay. I think for me, it's been very personal because I always felt I did not have the best, like, you know, I grew up in an abusive home. I felt like I was kind of trapped. I didn't really have a vision of what I wanted to do. I didn't know, like, it was hard, right? Hard circumstances. And like, so I always felt like, and I'm not at all saying I'm remotely musically inclined, but if he could get out, I could get out, you know. If he can do something great, I can do something great. Like he, like this, you know, he walked these streets, he walked these school hallways, like, you know, I did not particularly love my high school, but the point is, it's definitely been a connection for me because I like I was saying, like the demographic, the neighborhoods, like he did something great with his life, you know, and it's like, so he kind of went like this, and I'm like, well, he can do it, I can do something. You know, like I'm not trapped.
Right.
Especially given his account of his at these shows, he talked a lot about on their block, in their neighborhood, they were kind of the gross, dirty family with the drug problem. He was, he talked about his dad had a drug problem. He was in and out of jail. Billy had to pretend like he didn't know what these drugs were to his friends. He had a brother with some, mental issues or whatever the name. So he said that the house wasn't clean. That they were that house in the block that, you're told to avoid at Halloween, right? Because you don't want your kid to. So everyone has that neighborhood house and that family that you're kind of like, they got problems. That the cops are coming over there every once in a while. It's a dirty house, and he made it from that to this. So not only was he a Midwestern person who got out of it, right? Because sometimes in the Midwest you can feel stuck. You're not East Coast. You're not West Coast. You're like gloomy 90% of the time. You feel stuck. But he went from not just that, but a polar opposite or a polar, extreme of that to making out of that. So yeah, if he can make it out, and that he wasn't not only abused, but he was not only not encouraged to do music, but he was discouraged. Even when his family saw the talent, they still said, you'll never amount to anything. So Jesus, God, he had everything against him. So if he can keep, I don't know. Thankfully, he was one of the 90s rock gods who made it, thankfully.
I feel like that's kind of an undercurrent of all of this is like, obviously he had a lot of peers who weren't able to, who aren't with us to tell the tale anymore. So that's becoming more and more of a, What's that?
I feel like maybe there's some Midwestern values there. Not that Midwestern people don't kill themselves, but there are some Midwestern family value things that he has definitely grasped onto now with Chloe and kids. And he's got that home in the Chicago suburbs-ish, maybe a little bit further outside of that, arguably. But, he's got the family values thing, I think, is something that Midwesterners, and I hate to say family values to sound like it's politicized, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Well, even like Frank and I have been listening to and doing an episode about the final not final but final at the time Metro show and the kind of end of the band, the initial end of the band, and Billy says in one interview, like about the band, it's not very cool. It may not be very cool or hip but like we actually tried our best. Like we worked really hard. Like it feels like uncool to say this kind of like there was also that too, like the I don't know, like he's always had sort of a work ethic and a desire to kind of persevere as opposed to succumbing to the kind of like hipness of not giving a shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That was our sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead, Mandy.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I think there was a delay. I was just going to say my experience is different from you guys because I lived in Utah my whole life in a really small town, so I didn't get that. I didn't know where the steeple was that guided him to his heart and home, like I didn't know where these things were and like the city by the lake, and I didn't know what that was like. And I just knew that I was like severely depressed and somebody understood me. And so like, if he could make it out, I could. So it wasn't so much that he made it out of his area, that it was more that he made it out of the situation that he was in. But I didn't even know it was as horrible as it was. Like, you really had to be at these shows, but he didn't make it out to be like this horrible thing. It was just something that you could tell he's retold and relived. Like Melissa said, he closes his eyes and you can tell he's reliving it. And like, he helped me get through my abuse. So that's the thing we had in common, not the area so much.
Yeah.
So I couldn't have lived in a more different place than you guys.
But I mean, that's like, that's much more universal, the getting out of the situation you're in, even when it seems like there's no evidence to suggest that you ever will, but just like that hope, it goes a long way, I'm sure.
One thing I will say, sorry, I don't think I cut you off or not.
No.
Okay, so one thing Mandy had just said about the 33 song, really, and maybe it's because I live here, I do view it from the Midwestern point of view. There was one interview I heard probably a long time ago. He had talked about that song and some other things some lines he had written, and he had said, growing up in Chicago, specifically in the Chicagoland area where he did, he said so much of the year, and I use this line a lot, we just have this gloom overcast.
Mm-hmm.
But what he said was, I was riding, my bike in this gloomy Chicago day where in a way that only Chicago gets. And I, because I'm from here, I guess, completely felt it. I was enveloped immediately in that day that he wrote the song in, because we do get a specific type of gloom, and it is so. I mean, I'm exhausted just thinking about it because we're in that era now, and it's going to go for the next 7 months.
Right.
It's already setting in. Like it's been here for a week now, and I'm like
cold, mist, and gloom. But with that line, so I pull my collar up and face the cold on my own.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think about that so much on a good day, let alone on the day when you're out there walking and you're like, oh, Jesus, and you actually do it. And you're alone and you're thinking, oh, Jesus, I'm a Billy cliche right now and I'm depressed today,
Mm-hmm.
But I do view all of his music from a Midwestern Chicago perspective. So to me, I do feel a lot of it in his music. And of course, driving down Lakeshore Drive one night, tonight comes on, and that line comes on. It's just so apropos.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've even talked about that with 33 in the past when we covered the album. Like I not being from Chicago, but being from sort of a sister cold, gloomy 7 months of the year thing. That song felt like, that song especially resonated with me, and that line as well, pull my collar up and face the cold. It was like, okay, bingo, this is what, like I totally can like
metaphorically, but also reality, right?
Yeah.
I feel like Mandy, like I have that similar experience because I grew up in a very small, like Texas, like Friday Night Lights, type of town, like very much like that, where you just feel stuck and like, you have your own family drama and you have a lot of other stuff and you feel like the outsider and you just feel like I'm never going to get out of this, and that feeling, that heavy feeling of being like looking around you and saying like, oh, is this going to be my life, and then listening to that music and it kind of lifting you up out of that and just being like, I'm going to be okay, is such a powerful feeling, and I think that's what kind of connects us all, with it's regional, it's personal, it's like all these things come together that kind of lift us to this thing that makes it more than fandom. It's just more personal.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
it's personal.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, what we don't want to keep you all day. We so appreciate this. This is great.
Yeah,
This has been a
thank you
great
for
chat. But yeah,
We're gonna keep
is
talking, don't worry.
Yeah, is there any are there any other highlights for anybody, or any like I don't know, anything else that stood out to you about the show or shows that you went to?
Mandy, I don't know if you remember this, but one of the things that stood out, I mean, I'm sure you remember this, that stood out the last show. So I understand boundaries. Billy has to have boundaries. I do like the fact that people like, it seems like people respect his boundaries at ZuZu's. So, I don't think he gets like, I'm sure there's disrespectful people, like what you say, because it's like maybe out of 100 people, you're going to have those fans that are but so I felt like the last show, I don't know what he was feeling, maybe relief, maybe sadness, who knows, right? The very last show, probably he's got to be somewhat exhausted, I would think. He had his guard totally down after that show. So instead of being like, oh, thank you, like, hi, how are you? He was actually just like,
Yeah.
we were talking about like, I don't know, it was very, he was just very like relaxed. And that really stuck out to me because I like that part of Billy where he can just like relax and, just kind of hang out and talk. And I do appreciate his time.
Yeah, the last, first of all, I have to thank Melissa. She's the reason why I got to go to this show. So God bless her.
Right.
I always owe you a big one in my book. But after the show I went to, he sat there. ZuZu's is, I think, a place of comfort for him.
Yeah.
I feel like he probably feels a little bit safer there. That's his home turf, right? It's his ballpark. So, I mean, after our show, when there was just a handful of us left sitting, finishing our coffee, he sat down and ate with Chloe. I mean, it's pretty cute, right? I mean, they're at the shop that they own. They're chill. When he was done and we were finishing up sort of the same time, and he got up to walk away and we all got to say thank you. And, he's cool, chill, personal. There's no threat. I feel like it's ZuZu's, when you're in ZuZu's, if you've never been able to go there, it gives you such a great environment. It's just chill. There's some antique stuff. There's some pumpkin pictures, but really it's just a tea shop, and it's cool. Like the little artsy stuff there. There's incense that you could buy. You know what I mean?
It's like oddities and books and
Just
stuff.
kids running around.
Yeah, it's just like a neighborhood tea. I mean, it's like great.
The vibe is just awesome. And, you know, I think when you walk in that door, even if you're a big fan, you do sort of succumb to the ZuZu's vibe, you know, and you do sort of chill out. And I think Billy feels that too.
Yeah.
When you're there,
That's great.
Yeah, he might sit next to you at lunch. He might not. Like, but it's like I'll go there when I have like a few hours of work to do, and like if I'm home, I'll just be doing other stuff. And I just go there. I camp out for the day, and you know, yeah, like he comes in, I think, pretty much every day, and it's just like, hey Billy, what's up? You know, and he's just, it's like, no, you know what I mean? It's not like
weird. It's like a weird dream that you had in the 90s, right?
Yeah, I mean,
and you just chat with people, like, what's going on here right now? Yeah.
He's provided me with this place, and I'm providing him with, like, you know, I get, like, I don't know. I just think that he should be treated like a extremely talented, normal person, right? Like normal guy.
We have to support ZuZu's to keep it open. Every time I go there, that's the one place I don't look at price tags. Whatever I want,
right.
I'll buy a couple. I'll buy the meatball sub, which is amazing. I'll buy the coffee or tea. You know, I'm just like, that's my place. You know, some people go to Disney. Some people want to go to Macy's. ZuZu's is like, whatever I want there, I'm buying it. Of course, some of the $500 things I don't, but
yeah, we haven't been, Pat and I haven't been yet, but we plan to sometime in the near future. But I know I bought tea from there online. It's delicious. It's great. Mandy, had you been there before?
I went there in May, and that's actually how me and Melissa met. Is I was like a lamb going into this.
Oh, nice.
Posting Instagram like, I'm coming by myself. Does anybody see me?
I was like, I don't know the area. I was like imagining it like New York in the like.
I'm like, I'm your friend, girl. I got you.
Oh, that's so funny.
So she, like,
you're not alone.
Yeah, so we just connected immediately. So I went there with her, and like, leaving there, I just felt devastated. Like, and then leaving there again, like it feels like home. You don't want to leave ZuZu's. I don't want to leave Chicago. Like, that was like another part of my heartbreak. But
I'm in January. You'll want to leave Chicago.
You always have a place. Like, you always can come. Every time I get a ticket, like 2 tickets, I'm like, it's your ticket until you tell me you're not coming.
Yeah, we're like each other's.
I know, I got John.
That's so funny because I almost moved to Chicago. I was supposed to move to Chicago after college, and I had always visited during the winter. You know, like I was like, okay, because my friend was like, who lived there, was like, you better come. You got to visit now. He's like, if you're gonna live here, you got to know what it's like. And I love Chicago. Even then, I loved it. I ended up moving to New York instead for different reasons, but like, I absolutely love Chicago. I haven't been back in a while other than with layovers, and I can't wait to go back. And I'm, you know,
the time of year I buy lottery tickets so I can get out.
What's that?
This is the time of year I buy lottery tickets.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
I can come visit Pat and Frank.
Yeah.
Permanently.
Yeah.
But one thing I would like to finish up saying, if I could, about this Pumpkins community, Melissa and Mandy. I don't know that I met Mandy before, but Melissa, you know, just getting me to come polka dot Pam is the reason why I got to hook up with Melissa, we do look out for each other in this, especially in this core group that I think we have. I don't know if you want to call it the ZuZu's crowd or not, but I guess there's a clique even online that you guys see our names on Twitter and Instagram, right? We don't know each other, but that hardcore group, we really, I feel like, do kind of look out for each other when there's extra tickets, or I've gotten merch because someone said it's on sale right now, or, you know, I've gotten shows and locally that because someone said, you know, Matt Lockwood helps me out a lot with stuff. I help him out with stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of people, we send each other autographed posters if I had an extra one, or, you know what I mean? Stuff like that. I got a couple things to send Matt right now. One of the Pumpkins gigantic bars and beer bottles. I just sent him a pillbox poster. So it's like that kind of stuff. You get stuff in the mail. You're like, oh, that's cool. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of those gigantic bars, one of the things we're going to be doing, because I just ordered them. Actually, it's stuck in some. I don't know what's up with the post office, but for some reason it was held. So I don't know when we're going to get those. But when we do, we're going to review them.
Hopefully, it's not held in a hot
no one
room.
took a bite out of it.
Yeah.
I know, right? Yeah, it was like, it had to be around Halloween. That's
Well, we gotta eat them no matter what condition they're in.
That's right.
part
Yeah,
of the
they're
challenge.
completely melted. They're just going to be. We're oscillating right now between 90 weather degree and 50s right now, so it's just going up and down.
Yeah,
we'll probably
they're
get them when
melted.
it's
You have to
melted.
lick the envelope.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, I was like, it tastes pretty good.
As
Yeah.
is, yeah, as is.
But yeah, I think Matt. Just to mention Matt's a huge a huge contributor to this show. He's always sending us like bootlegs and stuff. Frank Ortega too is another guy who sends us a lot of good stuff. Yeah, this community, when we started this, we wanted to. One, we were getting back because we had kind of lost our way a little bit just for one reason or another, and we were getting back into it. And I know for me, diving in during my cancer treatments, it really made me fall in love with the band again. But also it was really nice because there are factions of the fandom that can be toxic, but for the most part, it's people like you who make it worth doing this podcast, because we hear from you so often and the feedback has been great. And it's just such a fantastic community of wonderful people that we can't wait to meet in person at these shows or like in the future.
And it's just been really great. It's been so great too, especially like kind of coinciding with a time when everyone's isolated. We've sort of virtually made a lot of new friends and we've, even though it's like from a distance, we've bonded over some pretty, like you've all talked about, like pretty powerful shared experiences or, just deep connection to this music and everything. So yeah, it's great, and you all are we so appreciate you all talking to us today, because this
I'm super grateful for the community. Like Mandy and I only connected over Smashing Pumpkins. John and I only connected over Smashing, but it's like now it's like I don't mind going to something by myself and then kind of feeling like I know who I'm going to see, or like we all kind of, it's just like a group, and that I really appreciate. And the other thing is, I think it has to be said, like Chloe does add a lot of magic to that place too. Like she puts her whole heart into ZuZu's, and like anything she touches is gold to me. Like, so like just with the stuff that she bakes, and like I remember when they first opened and they were trying to figure out like banana muffins or banana loaf, or it was like she still bakes like banana chocolate chip banana bread like loaves for the holidays, and I buy a bunch. She's amazing. Like, I really, really have enjoyed getting to know her, and like she puts her whole heart in that place.
You can tell she's very passionate about, and it shows. I mean, it's obvious with how great the place looks and all the fantastic products.
It's like her blood, sweat, and tears.
Yeah, she's right on the floor with the rest of the workers.
Yeah, she doesn't hire people to do her stuff. She does it herself. Yeah, she's right on the floor. Amazing. She's serving food. She's super like. The idea is
one of the Gish events. She worked the door. I was like,
she worked the door. I'm like, what?
Yeah,
because it's a lot. It's overwhelming, but I think it's like a really safe group of people. As far as like, getting together for things, and like we have this movie night on Friday, and I learned recently that like when you have an extra ticket, go, like ask the Smashing Pumpkins family first, or if you need a ticket, ask, right? Like, so I almost like it just that we take care of each other. I think
I almost hopped on a plane for the last show. I came very close, and another Pumpkins Kim Rosas was gonna help me out as well, Sierra, just kind of being like we'll help you out, we'll get you in, but it didn't happen because of just schedule stuff, and but I was this close to going there. That would have been really fun.
If we didn't have kids right now, we'd be flying all over the country, but
all the stuff, but like it really did, like it really is a great community that they'll help you out. And we've had people who have helped us get a hold of rare stuff that we wanted too, like, you know, vinyl and all these kind of collectible stuff. Or we have trouble finding. I know right now our issue for the time period that we're covering, some of that stuff is only available on CD, and while we have the CD, we don't have a way to rip it to MP3. Yeah, and we don't want to rip it from YouTube because the quality is not as good. So a lot of our fans are gracious enough to send us those, you know, files and stuff, that so we can use it for the show, and also so that we can properly listen to it and break it down. Not to backtrack a little bit, sorry about this, I know we're wrapping up, but just real quick, kind of to sum everything up, was there anything that you noticed, especially in like kind of like before because we kind of know from like that Pain or the Vigil on a lot of those tracks from the demos and stuff, but was there anything that you noticed in those kind of pre Pumpkins demos that really stood out to you, that kind of surprised you, or that you want to convey to the audience who wasn't there? Like what was that like hearing those? Like what did you notice with those songs?
Oh, that's a good question.
How articulate he was so young, and how amazing he was, and how well he was, you know, he could put pain into words. I don't know, that was my thing. I've been playing the guitar since I was 15, and I can't imagine being as talented as him. Like, I know that that's not like the deepest answer, but he was able to convey deep pain very well through his songs.
Yeah.
And that's what stood out to me. Not just like one song in particular, but his talent, and just he's amazing with lyrics and I don't know, he's just amazing. That's all.
So that's basically what we do a lot of heavy editing on our episodes, but most of the time it's us, as we say, Falloning it. You know, it's just it's so
Jimmy
good, it's so
Fallon.
awesome. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I don't want to be like Jimmy Fallon.
No, you're not. But I'm just saying, like, we are saying, like, we always are like, just sometimes we'll do an episode and we're like, all we're saying is it's great, it's awesome.
There's
So we're
no
trying
other
to
way
find
to describe him. He's I mean, there's like many ways, but he's just out of this world, talented. He's just otherworldly, and like not in a bad way. I don't see him as not human. He's just otherworldly talented, and he was born with this gift, and he's sculpted it and made it his. I don't know. He was born with something that like I don't understand. Just too much talent.
I think for me, like going through hard times is like I go to self-destruct, right? It's like, oh, you're going through something hard, you're sleeping on couches, you're traveling, you're living out of a van, you know, whatever. Like you're going through this like unknown time, you have no money, you're literally starving, you're sneaking into a studio to sleep at night. Like, you know, I don't know. You can definitely turn to other things. That he turned to like songwriting, and that's not
right.
You know, and like, so that, like I said, I mean, it's just like smart. We all know that, but his intelligence level to be able to convey what he's going through into words versus like, you know, literally self-destruct. I mean, he said during the show, like he didn't do drugs.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, other than speed that, you know, they talked about like in the car, he didn't do drugs. I'm like, that's pretty commendable nowadays, you know, even back in the 90s. So that's something that was like, wow.
Even these early songs, like at ZuZu's, these ZuZu shows particularly, it was VH1 storytellers, right? It was a little blurb of a story that you're like, what the hell? What was that? Like his stories were crazy about witches and weird stuff. You're just like, what? And then he writes the song about it, and you're like, holy crap. And like Mandy had said, the age he was at, right? So I think, again, every time we're hearing Billing or hearing his songs or poetry, I believe we're just hearing that mix of genius brain and deep emotional pain. That's the recipe I think that he's giving us. And I think
you summed it up very well with that. Absolutely. Deep emotional pain and intelligence.
The witch story is something that we've been waiting for in the book. You know, hopefully that book comes out sometime.
I want to hear all about this witch.
I want to hear about the witch. Yeah.
I had asked him,
the witch. No.
I had asked him if he where can I know they were recording these shows.
Yes, that was my next thing I was going to say.
Like, where and when can I purchase the full I want these stories to rehear, because when you're there, and I only went to one show, I didn't get to go to 5. I went
Like,
to one.
which show are they gonna pick, right?
Well, that plus I want to rehear them so I could, because sometimes when you're there, you're like looking at, like you said, the fingers on the strings,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, you're looking at
You might miss part of it, right? But I want to hear them again and like really hear them again. But he says he doesn't really plan on if he does sell a show or put it out, it would most likely be the song parts of it and not so much the story, which I think is a shame. But what do I know?
I think that would take so much trust to like be able to give that to the whole world, because he's given his feelings to the whole world with his music, and then it blows up on him like a door or Machina, or like the many albums that haven't got the
54 years old.
appreciation.
I think he's so raw now. I think he could get that out there, because you know what? Who's going to buy that? It's going to be the hardcore fans.
Yeah, I could see the hesitation because of like the clickbait kind of culture with online stuff, where they're gonna pick one thing out of context or like try to frame a narrative around it, and he's used to that by now. Like even
but it's still no fun, right?
Past couple of years, yeah. So I could see how he would be hesitant too. So I think it's really special that y'all got to be there, that you got to see this in person and hear these stories, because it was such a personal, deep thing. You all get to experience this wonderful thing in person. And I'm glad that y'all could join us to talk about your experience, and to, hopefully you can join us again in the future in some capacity if you're down for it, to talk with us, not just about shows, but albums as well and stuff. But yeah, we really
too.
Yeah, we'll see you there. I mean, we're gonna make it happen.
We're gonna make a ZuZu's appearance happen.
Thanks for what you guys do. It's awesome. It's amazing. Where else can you get something like this for someone like me sitting at my desk? And sometimes it takes me a whole day to listen to one episode because I have to keep stopping for a work call.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
You're with me the whole day, and you're like, Pumpkins radio, talk radio. Where else can you get that? You can't. So
and it's positive.
Yeah, it's awesome.
We tried to be
stuff up and it's negative, and you're like, I don't want to hear this.
Yeah, that's where we try to live in that positive space.
We're trying to celebrate the music. I know I probably went on too much of a rant last episode with the audience talking, but that's probably the most negative I'll be. But yeah, we just want to give a quick thanks because we have a buymeacoffee.com account, and people have been gracious enough to donate. Pat, who do we have to thank for recent donations?
We want to thank once again Steve Foley. We want to thank Will Alexander, and we want to thank David Jepson. All of you most recently, we appreciate it so much. We also, I guess as we wrap things up, we obviously the passing of Bjorn, that we just kind of wanted to, we didn't know him personally, but obviously he was a big part of the Pumpkins family, so we just wanted to say we're thinking about everybody who knew him. We know he was we know it was a big loss, so just wanted to acknowledge that. But yeah, we want to thank you all again so much for doing this. This was great.
Thank you.
Yeah, we have a lot more stuff. We're not slowing down anytime soon, right, Frank?
We're going to be launching a Patreon soon. We're going to have a lot of bonus content there, and even some merch that you can pick up. And also, we're going to be doing more of these kind of Zoom hangs with listeners. So look out for that. And yeah, thank you again, Mandy, Melissa, John, for taking the time out to speak with us here at the Pumpkast. We really appreciate you and your time, and for sharing so much with us. And Pat, you want to take us out? And everybody, you can join in with us as we do this.
So we want to thank all of our guests, and we want to wish everyone out there in Pumpkinland a very fond farewell and good night.
Bye.
Bye. I think Zoom mutes each other when we try to talk in unison.
Oh yeah,
so we'll see how that works.
A bunch of loud assholes just talking over our guests.